How did Tabletop Village start? Well, we have to go back to maybe about 8 years now. About 8 years ago, my son started bringing home Pokemon cards, Polaris. Polaris brought home Pokemon cards when he was around 5 years old, and it reminded me of like when I was a middle school and high school kid, and we started playing with Magic cards. And then what I thought of was, oh, this kid likes collecting cards. So we went and we started buying some of the cards. And then we were at a Collecticon or Comic Con. We were at the Emerald City Comic Con, and we met someone who would show us how to play the game of Pokemon. So there was a professor there, Katie, taught us for the whole day how to basically play Pokemon cards, the game. He liked it so much we came back the next day, and that's all he wanted to do at Emerald City Comic Con. And so he did it, and he played, and he could barely read at the time, but he got the idea and the motions and the play, and he won a couple tournaments as first-time player as a kid. And he was full of joy, right? And so from that was like our trip onto like this whole Pokemon world. And then we started going to leagues, and we would go from all these different stores all over Washington playing, because that's what he wanted to do. So we would go to one store that was down south in Renton, or all the way down in Olympia, go back over to Bellevue, Ballard, Linwood. We would travel, and we found that like all of these stores, none of them were actually like dedicated to Pokemon. In fact, all of these stores barely knew what to do about Pokemon, but the community, the players who would travel, and it wasn't just us doing it, it was a very large group of Pokemon players that would all congregate at these different places throughout the week and throughout the month. And it was fun, and the kids became really good friends with each other. We would play together, and there was a guy, Jimmy, who just sold cards to us, basically out of his trunk and out of his house. He was actually the original owner of Tabletop Village. So the original owner, Jimmy, would go to a lot of these different tournaments, and people would need cards to play the game, and we would buy our cards from him. And I would, because I enjoyed it so much, and at this time I had adult money to do so, and I could support my kid. It was just like any other sport, right? Like, well, you want your kid to be good, you had to kind of buy him like good gear and get him good training. So I did that. Jimmy, at the time, was like moving jobs, and he was like, "Hey, Brian, do you want to buy any of my stuff? I'm gonna be done." I said, "I want to buy a business," because it's, again, like at our stage, we had in my life at that time, I had a Taekwondo business, I had a sausage stand business at the stadiums. I was involved in another, like, doing sales and marketing for another business. I was like, oh, this would be cool. Like, I could buy his distribution and then do what he was doing. And then I have a little space in my Taekwondo studio where I probably could fit all these things. So we did that. And actually, this is the first Tabletop Village store, was just this office. And we started selling cards to the players. So I bought it from Jimmy, and Jimmy already had recognition in our community as the person, and now we just started looking for a space. We had no idea like the pandemic was coming at that time, because this was 18, 19, late 18 when I think I purchased it. We didn't sign deals, I think, until 18. And I didn't start buying stuff until about 2018. And so we started doing it here in my Taekwondo gym, part-time. And as Taekwondo rolled around towards the end of 2019, Taekwondo was kind of like it wasn't really working out. I think even the change of like what kids were into, right? As far as like combat and contact sport, was turning into like, video games and other stuff. And it just made sense that we could turn this place and try and see if it would work as a big, which would be it. I think currently right now we're one of the biggest play spaces in the area, in the state, in fact, where people can play Pokemon and just go primarily like Tabletop Village, but as a primarily Pokemon store. And so that's kind of like, that's how it all spawned. And then, so Taekwondo was going out of business. The pandemic happened at the same time. We were already planning to do the Pokemon thing, and we had no idea how long the pandemic was going to be, right? So we're like, cool, we'll set it up, but we can't play. We can just sell the cards. And then what happened during the pandemic was a lot of collectors and a lot of people who were stuck at home kind of wanted to spend their money on something. They couldn't spend it on traveling. They couldn't spend it on going out. They couldn't spend it like doing other things, right? So they spent it on collecting. I think there was a big influx of like social media, like entrepreneurs and social media figures, right? Who made it really, really popular. And those people came into the scene and like it kind of blew up. And then there was all this, the fear of missing out of like this opportunity to buy Pokemon. So all of our stuff sold. And so during the pandemic, in a store which was built to get people to play the game together, we ended up just being able to just sell cards, right? Which was great. And during that time in 2020, and most of my old customers and players will tell you, I kept the prices like the same as like at MSRP, right? Very, very little above, when no one else did, and everyone else was like just raking their customers over the coals. Everyone was, up until the point where like I know that my customers were complaining to other stores about them raising their prices, and there was a great change, right? It caused great change in the market. So now we're not just selling all the product that we're buying, right? People are coming to buy stuff from me because they're like, holy Brian, this stuff is so inexpensive, and like everyone else is charging double. Like Brian, you don't know how much. Like this is worth way more. And like, it's okay. Like just come and buy it. Like this is how we support like the community, right? Like there's no reason for the kids who are unable to like now buy cards. Like the whole point was to get it so like kids could get cards. So we started limiting things because there then became the scalpers, and the scalpers wanted to make money, and they saw great opportunity in like Pokemon. Like you could buy a box for $140 and then resell it online for like $250, right? It was crazy. People were making insane amounts of money just on the buy and resell of cards. That's why you had all those fights at Target and Walmart, people fighting over cards. Nobody ever fought over cards at my place, right? We never had people stealing. We never had people breaking into our place trying to steal our stuff. Knock on wood. But because we built a great community, and the community supported each other, right? They helped each other get cards, and that's continued since the pandemic. 4 years later, like that's what you see here, is we've built a community where Pokemon players, collectors, families, friends, parents can come and they can share. And it was all built on basically us, Polaris and I, going and building with all these other players. And we have very dedicated families that like also help. Like we didn't do it on our own, right? It took a village. Like it really did. Like the tabletop village thing really took a village to get to where it was. It wasn't just me, but it was like, me and my wife and her support, and then the players who stepped up, and then parents who like chipped in, right? They would all come and be like, cool, let's help organize. Like, let's get other players to come here. Let's get the other parents to know what we do here. And then we started training a lot of the kids. And then all of our kids are really good. Granted, my kid is probably one of the best in the world. It's because he's surrounded by like good players, right? He's surrounded by some of the very best players I feel like are in the world, but not just they're good as players, they're good as teachers, right? Yeah, they might not win top eights and they might not win championships, but they're very bright and they're very capable of teaching, and they like to share. So then we all rejoice in like Polaris's wins or Nicholas wins, right? Like whenever these kids win, like it's not just because individually they're the best player. They've been built by the best team, I feel like, right? By the best community. Like they are really, children of this village. So in a sense, even though sometimes my kid doesn't win, but other kids win, it feels good, right? We went down to Sacramento and we took 7 of the 16 top placings, right, for the kids in the kids division. Like that to me means a lot, right? We go and we often place well, right? And so I feel like what we've built is bigger than just Tabletop Village as a retail store. This Tabletop Village is it's a real village, like it's community. We sell the retail cards and we sell retail products. We host tournaments just like every other card store does, but we're community based, right? We're like a store that understands that like the money made and the revenue gained by doing these things like have real purpose, right? And at the end, the real purpose is not just like so that we continue to have a business, but it's so that we can further the growth of the community, right? And that growth brings about happiness and joy. Like again, we go back to like when my son first played the game and won, right? It's brought him great joy, right? And you can see that in these kids. Like you see them run around and they're happy playing, right? They're happy opening cards. I get adults who are 30 years old, open a pack and they get a Pikachu and they're happy. It makes people happy. So at the end, right, that's what Tabletop Village is. And so now the idea is to expand, right? To put this in as many cities as far as we can go, to create after school programs for kids so that they can also have that joy in their life. And Tabletop Village continues to like become a hopefully international like community across the world. That's the plan.